I'd like to call to order the Milan Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting for Thursday, January 12th, 2023. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to everyone attending this evening as well as watching online. Board members Ms. Freight and Mr. Farrow are excused this evening. Otherwise, everybody else is present, except for our other student rep, Mrs. Powell. We will start with an oath of office for our new board members, Sarah Murray and Betty Rosen-Leacher. They had already taken their official oath of office, so we're going to do a ceremonial oath of office to start with. Could raise your right hand. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this state, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Milan Area Schools according to the best of my ability. Congratulations. Thank you. Next on the agenda is School Board Recognition Month. Mr. Gearbaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Sislo. For those that do not know, January is School Board Recognition Month, and we do have certificates that we will provide to each of the board members. And I would also like to take a minute to read a certificate of proclamation from the state of Michigan. On behalf of the people of Michigan, Governor Gretchen Whitmer does hereby proclaim January 2023 as School Board Recognition Month. Whereas Michigan is home to nearly 600 locally elected local school boards that work to enrich the lives of Michigan students through education and directly influencing instruction in Michigan's public schools, and whereas local school board members are exceptional public servants who have dedicated and committed themselves to this duty by governing school districts, listening to parent voices, and advancing student achievement and well-being in the schools and communities where they serve. And whereas during the month, we join with the Michigan Association of School Boards, Michigan Department of Education, local school districts, and community organizations to recognize and raise awareness of the countless efforts and contributions of local school boards and school board members throughout Michigan. And now, therefore, Gretchen Whitmer, the Governor of Michigan, does hereby proclaim January 2023 as School Board Recognition Month. I also want to add my own thanks to the board members. They work diligently and put in a lot of time and effort, not just at the meetings where you see them present, but in conversations with me, in giving direction, in being in the community, and in being at school events. And I truly appreciate all of their hard work and dedication. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Next up is the election of officers. So with each year, we do have an election of the officers of the board. So I will open up nominations for president.
Mr. Sislo, I move to nominate Andrew Sislo for the office of president.
It does not need to be seconded. Are there any other nominations for president? Right. Now I need a motion to elect Andrew Sislo for the president of Milan Area Schools Board of Education for a one-year term.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to elect Andrew Sislo for president of the Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term. Any discussion? Ms. Heike?
Sislo.
Yes.
Farrow. They're not here. Heike, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Macchio.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next, I'll accept nominations for vice president.
Mr. Sislo, I nominate Betty Rosenleacher for vice president.
I have Betty Rosenleacher as a nomination for vice president. Are there any other nominations? Now I need a motion to elect Betty Rosenleacher for the vice president of Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to elect Betty Rosenleacher for vice president of the Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term. Any discussion? Ms. Heike?
Heike, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Macchio.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next, I'll accept nominations for secretary.
Mr. Sislo,
Yes.
I nominate Mrs. Heike for secretary.
I have a nomination of Michelle Heike for secretary. Any others? I need a motion to elect Michelle Heike for the secretary of the Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term.
Moved by Macchio.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to elect Michelle Heike for secretary of the Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term. Any discussion? Ms. Heike?
Heike, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Macchio.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next, I'll accept nominations for treasurer.
Mr. Sislo, I nominate Tom Farrow for treasurer.
I have a nomination of Tom Farrow for treasurer. Are there any other nominations? I need a motion to elect Tom Farrow for treasurer of Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to elect Tom Farrow for the treasurer of the Milan Area School Board of Education for a one-year term. Any discussion? Ms. Heike?
Heike, yes. Murray.
Yes.
Macchio.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next, I'll need appointment for the representatives to the Washington Area School Board and the Legislative Relations Network. These are the positions that we use to interact with the other school boards within the WISD in Washtenaw County. Currently, Ms. Freight is serving on those. Do I have any interest in those positions?
I would like to nominate Kirsten Freight for those positions.
Any other nominations? All right, I need a motion to approve the appointments as listed below for the Washtenaw School Board Association Representative Kirsten Freight and the Legislative Relations Network Representative Kirsten Freight.
Moved by Rosenleacher.
Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to approve the appointments for the Washtenaw County School Board Association Representative to be Kirsten Freight and the Legislative Relations Network Representative to be Kirsten Freight. Any discussion? Ms. Heike?
Murray.
Yes.
Macchio.
Yes.
Rosenleacher.
Yes.
Sislo.
Yes.
Heike, yes. The motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. Next up on the agenda is public comments. It's a reminder that this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It is not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes, and I'll ask you to finish when the timer goes off. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. So when we have the public comment, you'll come to the podium and speak into the microphone. We do start with students, so if there are any students who would like to address the board at this time, we'll entertain any students who would like to address the board. All right, others.
I'm here representing others. First of all, congratulations to the new board members. And
I'm sorry, can you say your name?
I'm sorry, I forgot about that part. That's 2 lines down. Oh. My name is Michael McVeigh from Saline Area Schools. Right now, in fact, I serve as a trustee for Saline Area Schools, and in fact, 2 nights ago, I was elected president of the school board. So I know Betty Rosen-Leacher very well as Kirsten Freight. I came tonight to speak about the Washtenaw Association of School Boards. I am a member, in fact, I'm the past president, and this year it looks like I'm going to be the vice president of the Washtenaw Association of School Boards. I took on that position because I thought it would be a great opportunity to improve communication amongst the trustees across all 9 districts around Washtenaw. So just a couple of things that you may or may not know. We have an annual meeting in March, and we run 1 or 2 modest professional development sessions throughout the year. And 3 or 4 times a year, we gather for a morning coffee, and that's where I've met many of you before. And we hear from legislators at the county, the state, and even the national levels. We've had Debbie Dingell attend, we've had Tim Wahlberg attend, among others. And it's an opportunity for us to speak directly to our legislators and to hear what's going on up in Lansing and in Capitol Hill. So my hope after speaking briefly this evening is that you will feel more comfortable reaching out to me if you think you have any issues or any things you'd like to bring to the Washtenaw Association of School Boards. And I know you have a lot on your plate, but I also wanted to thank you for Kirsten Freight, who serves as one of our officers with the WASB, and she's been doing a fantastic job. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you for your comment.
Good evening, Rachel Hobbs. I read the November 2nd, 2022 ACLU letter that was distributed to multiple school districts in the state and across the nation. It was not specific to Milan. After reading the letter, I wondered if the district had reached out to its council for guidance on the issue. If not, why not? You can respond to me by email. I did my own digging around. In my research, I found numerous cases that were not cited in the ACLU letter, which should be considered and applied to the parents and community members that have been submitting book challenges and raising concerns at board meetings. There are at least 2 well-established legal standards that have withstood constitutional challenges when it comes to challenges where parents are simply trying to protect their children from hidden dangers. These standards are obscene as to minors and harmful as to minors. Our U.S. Supreme Court acknowledges that obscene speech is not protected by the First Amendment. You can find that in Roth v. United States 354 U.S. 476. In Ginsburg versus New York 390 U.S. 629, the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of a New York statute that prohibited selling to minors under 17 years of age that was considered obscene to them, even though it was not obscene to adults. The Ginsburg court explained that although the magazine was clearly not obscene for adults, the state had acted within its First Amendment bounds in adopting a distinct, broader definition of obscenity for minors. Because obscene speech enjoys no First Amendment protection, states under Ginsburg, and may completely bar minors from receiving material deemed obscene for them, but not for adults. Accordingly, most states have enacted so-called harmful to minor obscenity statutes. Michigan is one of those statutes. You can find that at MCL 750.145C. The Ginsburg court explained material is obscene to minors if it, 1, is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community as a whole, with respect to what is suitable for minors. 2, appeals to the purity of interest of minors, and is 3, utterly without redeeming social importance for minors. Interestingly enough, you can go to the website for the National Coalition Against Censorship and find this information as well. There you will also find the following guidance. Governments can impede kids' access to material that is harmful to minors or obscene to minors. That means that minors can be banned from accessing materials which is usually defined as the depiction of nudity, sexual content, sexual excitement, and other abuses which predominantly appeal to the purity of interests of students and nudity or excretion, and is patently offensive with respect to the suitable material for minors. And 3, taken as a whole, lacks literacy, artistic,
Thank you for your
political-
comment. Thank you for your comment.
Somebody want to finish this?
Good evening. My name is Andrea Benink, and I'm speaking as a parent this evening. At one of the recent board meetings, former board member Jan Kiger mentioned that the presence of controversial books available in school libraries presented a parenting opportunity. While that is true, it is an opportunity for my family to have conversations about what we value and find appropriate, and it gives me the chance to remind my children to guard their hearts and minds. It is just really unfortunate that instead of me as a parent being allowed to talk to my children on my terms and what I feel is appropriate for their development in regards to sensitive subjects, I'm forced to talk to them before they may be ready because they may encounter explicit material in the schools. As it has become necessary, my family has had many conversations about what we find acceptable and appropriate. Given that perspective, I'm wondering how the board and the book review committee take into consideration students who don't have families to give them guidance on such extreme subject matters. Is the thought that there are trusted adults in the schools who will give guidance to the students? If that's the case, then the concern becomes, when does the discussion between the student and the staff on such explicit subjects cross the line into inappropriate conversations? And how does the staff guard against the student potentially misinterpreting the conversations of such sensitive subject matter? I'm also wondering how the board and book committee take into consideration students who may not have capacity for fully comprehending books of this nature, or students who may be emotionally impaired, and how such explicit material may impact them. I'd ask the board to consider that many other forms of media that our children consume are labeled with ratings or warnings concerning sensitive and explicit material. TV shows are rated based on age appropriateness. Movies are rated and labeled with content information such as explicit language, violence, nudity. Music is labeled as containing explicit language. Videos and teaching materials shown in the classroom have limitations on what can be deemed appropriate. It would be worth implementing a rating system for our books as well, especially any book that is challenged and considered acceptable for our school libraries. Books with certain ratings could be placed in restricted access and be checked out only with parent or guardian permission, which I know was something that was discussed at the last board meeting. There's middle ground here for some of us. I realize that some people from either side of this argument may not be satisfied with such a system. But a policy of this type at least moves in the direction of safeguarding some vulnerable students, those with intellectual disabilities or emotional impairments. Also consider that with the sex ed curriculum in public schools, parents and guardians have the opportunity to preview the curriculum and opt their students out of the curriculum. Why do parents not have the opportunity to provide permission or restrict access for even more explicit content for their children? The district has a real opportunity here to show how a moderate compromise can be reached. On another topic, I hope that the board members...
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, Sydney Smith. I just want to start this off by saying that Gretchen Whitmer's point that you guys are focused on education, I think is good to keep in mind as we get started with this. For that, you guys focus on education by making students sign a technology acceptable use and internet safety agreement. This is for grades 6 through 12, so middle and high school. The district will remove any material which the district at its sole discretion believes may be objectionable. In compliance with the Children's Internet Protection Act and Michigan PA 212, the district maintains an internet filter that protects children from, okay, I want you to listen to this one, child pornography, obscene materials, materials harmful to minors and adults from child pornography and obscene materials at schools and libraries. This is what your students sign, and as a former Milan student, I signed. Students also have to sign something that says, I will tell my teachers and parents if I see any bad language or pictures on the internet, or if anyone makes me feel nervous or uncomfortable online, and I will not use bad language online. There were several times in certain classes, specifically graphic design, where we would do projects having to search for images, and images that weren't even against this were blocked from us, websites, such. I'm just curious if any of you want to answer the question of why is it blocked on our Chromebooks while you freely give it to us in our libraries? Well, not our libraries anymore, thankfully, but these students have access to this, and that is not focused on education. It quite literally says right here that obscene materials, if you want to point out that it's not pornography, fine. Obscene materials, you cannot tell me that this is not obscene. It's disgusting. So, yeah, I just want to say if anyone has any kids here to just maybe close their ears or walk them out because it's not going to be kid-friendly or education-based like it's supposed to be. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, Jamie McElvaney. I will be reading from books from Milan High School, and I will also be I will hold them up as I go. We're going to get started with Court of Mist and Fury. His head lowered to my breast, and with one bite on my nipple, I was clawing at his back. He sucks my breast into his mouth. He reaches up and undoes my bra, releasing my large breast. My exposed nipples harden in the exposed air. His fingers slid into me. He approved at the wetness between my thighs. Oh, yeah. He put his balls in my face. His fingers prick apart my pussy. I'm so sorry that I have to say this to everybody. His look is the reason for the moistness in my panties. He spreads me to expose my insides. His pants fall to the ground, revealing his proud length. My mouth went dry. I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth. I'm going to give you the blowjob of your life. He looks at the reason for the moistness. Oh no. His pants fall to his ankles. His impressive cock protrudes through his boxers. He reached his hand down and pulled out my dick. He quickly went to giving me head. I put some lube on it and got him up on his knees and slid him in from behind. He moaned and I finally cummed. I pulled out of him and finished with masturbating. I crouch eagerly to my knees and take his cock into my mouth. At first I wrap my lips only around the tip, teasing him. I take his balls in my hands, squeezing them gently. Spit in my mouth. I draw a glob of saliva to the front of my mouth and drop it into hers. Now fuck me. I push her legs farther apart and rub the tip of my penis around her vagina. I slide inside her and thrust as hard as I can. We fuck for an hour and then I come inside her. He starts to moan as I swallow his long shaft. Moving his hips slightly, he begins fucking my mouth, the tinkling between my legs. We slide off our underwear. Maggie puts her mouth over my cock and gives me head for like 20 minutes. Nothing happens, so I spit on myself, and she tries jerking me off. I crawl between her legs and stick my tongue on her pussy and start giving her head. He pushes my skirt up and yanks down my panties. My wet pussy glistens in the light. I begin to also touch myself eagerly for that sweet release. She squirts some lotion on her dildo and starts fucking herself. She gets off like 4 times in 20 minutes. I'm going to eat her pussy. Do you know how to eat a pussy? Papa Gaines never taught you how to eat a pussy, boy? One day you need to eat a pussy. He didn't teach me that, but he taught me how to eat a butthole. Pinned in this position, I draw my legs up and spread them wide. The first touch of his tongue on my pussy. All this stuff I read right here was from Penthouse. Penthouse. And these books are from your school. How is that okay? Thank you.
Hold on just one moment. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Jacob Bennick. I'm just going to be finishing up what Andrea Benink was saying. Sure. On another topic, I hope that the board members attending the next Big Red Board chat focusing on the topic of school safety take the time to address the repeated concerns expressed by several constituents on how MAS paraprofessionals are trained to respond in a lockdown situation. I've heard it brought up numerous times that paras have requested keys to access the buildings and classrooms to quickly move students in their care to safety. I really hope that this concern isn't brushed off any longer. There are many students in MAS schools that have mobility concerns, are deaf or hard of hearing, have reduced capacity for following directions under duress, and many other factors. These students are deserving of safeguarding in an emergency situation. Their parents are deserving of having clear training and access to the buildings in an emergency to help them keep their students safe. I'd like to end my comments with some positivity. Over the course of this school year, I've had some opportunities to interact with teachers and staff at both the high school and at Simons. I've appreciated the office staff in each building. I've been grateful for clear communication with my 9th grader's teaching as he's learning to adjust to high school norms and expectations. I'm grateful for the work of the high school social worker helping to formulate an updated 504 plan for one of my students and for the collaboration of implementing that with my child's teachers. I'm thankful for my 3rd grade teachers and the TCs and the support staff at Simons. Because of them, we've had a pretty positive transitioning to a new building. I'm thankful for the flexibility of the staff at Simons as they work to implement a differentiated learning strategy for not only my son, but for all the students there. The boots on the ground, so to speak, have been really dedicated to solid communication in my experience, and for that I am grateful. Thank you for your time this evening. Just a reminder, that's from Andrea Benink.
Thank you for the comment.
Hi, I'm April Nix, and I'm a victim of sexual assault. And as a victim, I do not feel shamed for parents wanting to protect their children from being exposed to sexually explicit material, regardless of the context or the message. As a parent who wants to protect children who are not all capable of processing the content, I do feel shamed. As has been made clear, these kids can access this type of material everywhere except for a school-issued Chromebook. So let them access it on their own time, not on the school's time. The movie Precious is based off the novel Push, and that movie is rated R. An individual under the age of 17 cannot attend this movie without the presence of an adult. But you're telling us that 14, 15, and 16-year-olds can access this at school. I understand the content could be relatable to something that a student has gone through, but I don't see how it is helpful. Are there any programs available to help these students? I, for one, do not believe sexually explicit material should be accessible in school libraries, but we do have parents who are okay with it. Can we at least work together and place these books in a secluded area monitored by staff requiring parental consent for all these books? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Shannon. I'll be reading from a book that is located in the Milan School Library. If there are any young children, I suggest you cover their ears. Cliff's stepmother, buck naked, perched her knees, giving Cliff a blowjob. I watched Cliff pull his stepmother's head back and spit in her mouth. Then I watched him nail her from behind. Her hands braced against the yellow wall. And when it was over, after he came on her back, splatters of white clumps slimming down the crease of her back. You, F-U-C-K-E-D, my ass, in a bathroom at the Speedwagon warehouse. You choked me and slammed my head against the wall and came on my face. I tried jacking off to this gnarly Nicole Sheridan porno, but I have trouble getting hard. I'm sitting in front of my computer screen with my pants around my knees, pounding my limp dick. I squeeze a ton of lotion straight onto my penis and start going at it again. I jerk harder and harder and harder, but I cannot get a boner. She straddles me. I slip her navy blue top off and squeeze her breasts. They're a lot bigger than they were when we were 15. I want you inside me. Get inside of me, Travis. I sit up and put my hands on the sides of her waist and roll her over, pinning her back against the cool surface of the slide. Then I unbutton my jeans and push them down. Laura does the same with hers. Then she wraps her hand around my dick and begins massaging it. I lean closer to her, planting my hands above her shoulders, and we rub the tip of our tongues together. Spit in my mouth, she says. I draw a glob of saliva to the front of my mouth and drop it into hers. Awesome, she swallows. Now fuck me. I push her legs farther apart and rub the tip of my penis around her vagina until she grabs the back of my neck, pulling me closer. Do you want to come over and fuck them too? Is that what you're trying to ask? Because if you want to, then just come out and ask, and maybe I'll say yes, and you can come over and finish them off. Thoughts of my sister being fucked by two guys, one right after the other, smashed through my head. I slip my bloody hand down my pants. I wrap my fingers around my penis and massage it until it gets hard. Then I begin sliding it furiously up and down as fast as I can, going at it. Visions of Cliff jamming a rusted coat hanger between Laura's legs pound my head and my eyes pop open. I clench it as hard as I can, so hard that it looks like the veins are going to pop out of it. And when I open my hand again, a white and red stream of cum slides past my wrist and down my forearm. But then the screen flashes and a kid probably our age appears on it, hanging from a ceiling beam with a rope tied around his neck, masturbating. Think asphyxiation. Dave tells Michael to turn the volume up, so Michael does. And with clarity, I can hear the kid moaning as he jacks his piece really hard.
Hi, my name's Lake Foster. This is getting pretty old, you guys reading this stuff. It's really not that bad. Your kids can just look this stuff up on their phone. Your kids all have phones. They're not gonna check books out of the library just to read that. They're not. And your kids are probably doing something like that. They're teenagers. What do you expect? Just get over yourself. You're not protecting them from anything. They're gonna find this out somehow, somewhere. These books are a lot better than a lot of things you're gonna find on the internet. And reading does make them a bit smarter, Rather than do that than, watch porn on the internet. Just saying. It's the lesser of two evils. So, stop reading the porn. It gets kind of annoying. I'm kind of tired of hearing it.
Hi, my name's Izzy. This book, it's called Exit Here by Jason Myers, is here at Milan High School. Let me read you the description of this book. Travis returns home and expects the usual, drinking, doing drugs, and hooking up with girls. But because of an incident in Hawaii and an ex-girlfriend, things are different. Because he was so high, Travis doesn't know if he killed the girl he abandoned in the motel room or if she died of an overdose. Because he ultimately turns himself in, he returns home to Minnesota, where excessive drugs and alcohol, lots of partying, and plenty of sex are the norm. Cliff, with whom he shared his memorable first times using cocaine, becomes a junkie and ends up killing a friend of Travis's sister in a repulsive concluding scene. Kyle, while high, kills his girlfriend in a car crash. Travis works hard to reconnect with his old girlfriend, but after a seamy reunion, he backs off when he discovers that she had abandoned Cliff's baby. There are many more interconnections that involve other friends, So did in varied substance abuse in overwhelming quantities, random sexual situations, incompetent and enabling parents, guns, and drug dealing. It is impossible to disregard the vile things that Travis had gotten away with, such as revelation that he and Cliff once took turns raping a girl at a party. The language is graphic and gritty, and the writing is inadequate but static, anticipating no real future for Travis beyond jail. This book was found on Milan Library's website. If the librarian is supposed to pick age-appropriate books, why would this book have been chosen? The next page, I will be reading from the book Milk and Honey, which is also at the high school. Lie me down, lie me open like a map, and let your finger trace the places you still want to, F-U-C-K, out of me. Kiss me like I am the center point of gravity, and you are falling into me like my soul is the focal point of yours. And when your mouth is kissing, not my mouth, but other places, my legs will split apart out of habit, and that's when I pull you in, welcome you home. When the entire street is looking out their windows, wondering what all the commotion is, and the fire trucks are rolling in to save us, but they can't distinguish whether these flames began with our anger or our passion, I will smile, throw my head back, arch my body like a mountain you want to split in half. Baby, lick me. Like your mouth has the gift of reading and I'm your favorite book, find your favorite page in the soft spot between my legs and read it carefully, fluently, vividly. Don't you dare leave a single word untouched, and I swear my ending will be so good. The last few words will come, running to your mouth, and when you're done, take a seat, 'cause it's my turn to make music with my knees pressed to the ground. I am in high school, so if reading this coming from a 17-year-old who does go to a public school makes you uncomfortable, you might want to rethink what's in your library. Thank you.
Good evening, Logan Tisdale from Temperance, Michigan. Ladies and gentlemen, I graduated high school 6 decades ago. I went to a public school on the East Coast. My homeroom teacher would have us pledge allegiance to the flag. She'd take attendance. Then she'd say, sit down on your desk there, fold your hands, be quiet. And then she would reach for a book on the left-hand side of her desk, and she would read, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. For he hath founded upon the seas and established upon the floods. Who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord, but who shall stand in his holy place? He that hath clean hands and a pure heart, who hath not lifted up his soul unto vanity, nor sworn to deceit. He shall receive blessings from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation." Psalm 24. Learned that in the public school. I was a state police officer for 23 years. My responsibility was to protect the lives and property of people. I went back to college after I retired. I got a bachelor's degree from a Christian college. I got ordained in 2000 as a pastor. I worked at a Christian school for 4 years, K through 6, about 150 students. I did Grandparents' Day one day because I was the oldest person there. I asked this question, how do you know you have value as a person? A little 6-year-old girl, kindergartner, jumped out of her seat. I said, okay, how do you know you have value as a person? She said, because Jesus died for me. That's the only answer. There is no other answer. And a 6-year-old in a Christian school learned that. She probably got it from her parents, but we backed it up in the schools that we were at because we had things that were important to the kids there to develop them emotionally and spiritually. One of the things I believed is when I was doing it, I was just a recess monitor and a lunchroom monitor. That's all I did. And I realized I had the responsibility of those kids in my hands, the physical responsibility of them. This was in 2001 after 9/11. I also remember that I also had another responsibility, and that was to make sure that no one and nothing became a stumbling block to them while I were in my care. To be a teacher and have a responsibility from kids is a really a high calling on teachers. I have a lot of respect for teachers because there are 6 hours a day they deal with children, and parents give them that responsibility, but also with that responsibility goes something else, that they should not become a stumbling block to those children. That they should do nothing that puts a stumbling block to develop them emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Jesus said to his disciples, he said, it would be better for a person to have a millstone around his neck and be cast into the deep ocean than to make one of these little ones stumble. When I heard that, when I read that, I knew that I had a responsibility when I spent those 4 years in that school to make sure that I was not a stumbling block and to make sure no one else was. You know what? You have to make a decision to decide what is appropriate for kids in this school. That is a big decision you have to make. I would hope that you would listen to the people here today. I don't have any kids in the local school here, but I have grandkids and great-grandchildren that are going to grow up in Michigan here. I've been here since 1967, and when I went in the state police in 1968, I realized I had a great responsibility. You have a great responsibility. I applaud you for being elected officials, but remember that responsibility. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Holly Blade. I'm going to take a break from reading for a minute. One of the things on the agenda tonight is the book study, Why Meadow Died. You guys are going to discuss it finally. I just want to again request that you guys give it serious consideration. You've already done book studies in the past, and this is something that a lot of people in the community feel strongly about. They've even donated their own money to buy copies, and all of you have been given a copy of the book. Also, I just want to say for teachers and paras and parents out there that are listening to this, I suggest that everybody read or listen to this book. You can get it for free at audiblebooks.com with a free trial. It took me a week to get through it. I just listened to it in the car. The policies that happened in Parkland, Florida that killed 13 children and injured 13 people, they're the same, a lot of very similar policies that we have here at Milan. They're also very similar to the policies at Oxford. The book is really good at kind of pointing out, I mean, we hear from parents a lot, what happened to zero tolerance? When I was in school, we had a zero tolerance policy. Why is my kid being bullied all the time? Why is my kid having to deal with other kids in the classroom whose behavior is off the charts and never dealt with? This is the reason. This book explains everything to you about why it is that things are so different today than they were. We get messages all the time from people that work for the district that are absolutely just feeling hopeless. They feel like their hands are tied. They're having to deal with so many outrageous situations, and they feel like they absolutely have no way to deal with it that the district will support. I talk to parents who spend their entire drive in the mornings to the middle school giving their little girl a pep talk because she's already crying because of the anxiety that she has to walk in that building. That's what's happening in Milan schools, and it's not a one-off situation. There are a lot of situations like that. If your kid is being bullied, pushed around, harassed, bit, intimidated, terrorized, if they're also being told by the adults that they need to not stand up for themselves, that they just need to try to run away or avoid it, if they do finally defend themselves because no one else will stand up for them, and they get in trouble because now they're being told that it's a mutual situation, I'm just here to tell you, you are not alone. There are so many people that are going through that right now also. No child should have to endure going to school every day and knowing that they're going to feel unsafe and that the adults are going to be more concerned about if they get in trouble from their boss than whether or not they're protecting them from being mistreated. And no parent should feel like they have no option but to send their child into that situation. These are ongoing, documented abusive relationships that are allowed to go on for months. And if you're a teacher feeling frustrated,
thank you for your comment.
Please read this book.
Ashley St Clair. This is actually an article that Stephen King wrote. First, to the kids. There are people in your hometown who want to take certain books off the shelves of your school library. Do not argue with them, do not protest, do not organize or attend rallies to have the books put back on their shelves. Don't waste your time or your energy. Instead, hustle down to your public library where these frightened people's reach must fall short in a democracy, or to your local bookstore and get a copy of what has been banned. Read it carefully and discover what it is your elders don't want you to know. In many cases, you'll finish the banned books in question wondering what all the fuss was about. In others, however, you will find vital information about the human condition. It doesn't hurt to remember that John Steinbeck, J.D. Salinger, and even Mark Twain had been banned in this country's public schools for over 20 years. Second, to the parents in these towns. There are people out there who are deciding what your kids can read, and they don't care what you think because they are positive their ideas of what's proper and what's not are better and clearer than your own. Do you believe they are? Think carefully before you decide to accord the book banners this right of cancellation. Remember that they don't believe in democracy, but rather a kind of intellectual autocracy. If they are left to their own devices, a great deal of good literature may soon disappear from the shelves of school libraries simply because good books, books that make us think and feel, always generate controversy. If you are not careful and diligent about defending the rights of your children to read, there won't be much left, especially at the junior high level, when kids really begin to develop a lively life of the mind, but books about heroic boys who come off the bench to hit home runs in the bottom of the ninth, and shy girls with good personalities who finally get the big prom date with the boy of their dreams. Is that what you want for your kids, keeping in mind that controversy and surprise, sometimes even shock, are often the whetstone in which young minds are sharpened? Third, to the other interested citizens of these towns, please remember that book banning is censorship, and that censorship in a free society is always a serious matter. Even when it happens in a junior high, it is serious. A proposal to ban a book should always be given the gravest consideration. Book banners, after all, insist that the entire community should see things their way and only their way. When a book is banned, a whole set of thoughts is locked behind the assertion that theirs is the only set of values, valid set of values, one valid set of beliefs, one valid perception of the world. It's a scary idea, especially in a society which has been built on the ideas of free choice and free thought. Do I believe a defense should be mounted? Yes. If there's one American belief I hold above all others, it is that those who would set themselves up in judgment on the matters of what is right and what is best should be given no rest, that they should have to defend their behavior most stringently. No book, record, or film should be banned without a full airing of the issues. As a nation, we have been through too many fights to preserve our rights of free thought to let them go just because some prude with a highlighter doesn't approve of them.
My name's Josh McElvaney. For the last year, I've had to witness my wife suffer through reading some of the most repulsive context I've ever personally seen. Every time she finds a new book, it brings her to tears. And then she has to make the public aware, so she has to read these books word for word out loud. My wife is a protector of children, and she is willing to read this god-awful junk to bring the awareness and hopes that this madness, this filth will be removed from the grasp of these kids. Every time I hear her read one of these books, I am repulsed and disgusted. All I can do is sit and pray for her. I pray that her spirit is not consumed by this filth. I cringe the same way as most of you guys do when she was reading that. So I'm sure you can imagine my anger when she comes home from these board meetings and says that a board member made fun of the group Let Them Play and said we should call it Let Them Pray. The two other board members said they think these books are beautiful and they would let their 13-year-olds read them. Then another board member calls her a victim shamer and she shakes her Bible at the crowd and screaming. The anger I have knowing that there are men sitting on this board allowing this to happen is something I can hardly describe. Men who should be out to protect the children's minds, to shield them from perversion at all costs, but instead you are handing it out to them. The sexual context in these books is nothing short of pornographic, and if you're fighting to keep these things available to children, it's so mind-blowing that I really just sit in shock over it all. How dare you let this continue? The question everyone asks is, where are the police? This is a crime. Why are the police letting this happen? What if a kid were to take one of these books that you heard tonight and use it for a book report in his class? Would you allow it? Of course you wouldn't. So how dare you allow a child to bring that trash into their home? Would you let a kid wear these graphics on his shirt in school? No, you wouldn't. You would suspend him. And if one of us parents take these books and give them to a child at a park, we would be arrested because it's against the law to distribute sexually explicit materials to minors. It's against the law. And you guys must think you're above the law. You people should all be prosecuted and be made an example with the exception of Ms. Freight, who is the only sane person on this board. I could go on, but I will leave it at this.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carolyn Wetzler. I have lived in this district for 50 years. My sons have graduated from Milan and gone on to University of Michigan. I was a Cub Scout leader here. I was the booster president. I was a teacher. I was a play director, and now I'm a volunteer. Point being, I have been a part of this community for a very long time and very involved. Now, I'm in the schools almost every day in many classrooms, and I see amazing things going on in each and every one of these classrooms. Enormous amounts of time and energy and love going into our students' education. The basics are taught every day by dedicated, hardworking teachers and staff. Their earnest efforts are nothing less than amazing. I see it. Our students are in very good hands. I'm here to thank and acknowledge these hardworking teachers and staff. Their efforts are nothing less than amazing. Our students are in very good hands. I'm here to thank and acknowledge these efforts on behalf of our students and our community. I applaud the hard-working teachers, paras, and staff. Our students, I see, are treated with respect and dignity, and their education is given the highest priority here. I am proud of this staff and this administration and our underappreciated board members. They are trying to do what's best for students. People who criticize and disparage teachers and say they need to teach basics have not been in the classrooms here, because that is exactly what these teachers and people are doing every single day. We should be praising and thanking them, and that's just what I'm here to do tonight. You have my gratitude and highest admiration for the incredible job that you are doing under some very difficult circumstances. These people that I see go above and beyond every day, and they do amazing things for our teachers, doing on their own time and doing with their own money. So I say thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Are there others?
Hello, my name is George Elder. This book is lucky. It's in the modern schools. We have been called victim shamers for wanting to remove this book. After he was done, he got up and asked me to give him a blowjob. I said that I didn't know what I meant, and he says, suck on it. Then he took my head and forced my mouth on his penis. He pushed me down near his penis and said, I tried, but I gagged. You're the worst bitch I've ever done this to, he said. He pulled off my underpants. I watched him as he unzipped his pants and let me fall around his ankles. He lay down on top of me and started humping. I lay under him as he fucked me. He fucked me hard. When he came loudly. He snorted and bloated. He worked away on me while reaching down and touched his penis. He called me a bitch. He told me I was dry. He began his fist against the opening of my vagina, inserted his fingers into it, 3 or 4 at a time. Something sore. I began to bleed there. I was wet now. I made him excited. He was intrigued. He worked his whole fist up in my vagina and pumped it. No father wants to hear about a complete stranger putting his fist in his daughter's vagina. He started humping me again wildly. Raise your legs, he said. Spread them. I did. My legs were like plastic Barbie legs, not flexible, but he wasn't satisfied. He put a hand on each calf and pressed them out farther. He grabbed my breast. He twisted my nipples with his fingers, lapped them with his tongue. He played with them and squeezed them, and right down to my ribs. Nice white titties, he said. Each part of my body he claimed as his own, my mouth, my tongue, my breast. I want another blowjob. He held his dick in his hand. He grabbed my head and put it his mouth and sucked, he said. I took it in my hand. It was small, hot, clammy. It throbbed involuntarily from my touch. He shoved my head forward and put it in my mouth. He touched my tongue. I sucked it hard. Don't know how to suck dick, he said. His penis still limp. He held into his fingers and peed on me, hot, wet on my nose and lips. Then he smelled of him, the fruity, nauseating smell clung in my skin. He got hard enough to plunge himself into me. He ordered me to wrap my legs around his back, and he drove me into the ground. He came and slumped into me. I lay under, my heart's beating wildly. He watched me. You're going to have a baby, bitch, and what are you going to do about it? So you tell me this book belongs in our school. Doesn't wanting to remove this mean we are victim shamers. If you were a young girl and suffered something traumatic, you would want to be re-traumatized by reading this and knowing the classmates were reading it too. This is a crime. Somebody needs to be held accountable. Thank you.
Hey there, Trish Parker. Anyways, I'm here, and after one of the comments here, I'm also one of our Cub Scout and also a troop leader for our Boy Scouts unit here. And we have within our Scout oath, which is, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to help all people at all times, keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. What does it mean by being morally straight? According to USScouts.org, being morally straight means to live your life with honesty, to be clean in your speech and actions, and to be a person of strong character. Even talking about these books, yes. We cannot be reading these on the student Chromebooks, or these, even just the movies itself being rated R. But you're allowing the students to read these in our libraries. Both the middle school and the high school have these books. Anyways, changing the subject about the staff. Milan does have great staff. The teachers are dedicated, yes. Not just the teachers, but also the other staff, the office staff, and even the parents. And when I used to be a para for Milan area schools, unfortunately, I was treated like a second-class citizen, if even just a third-class citizen, by a couple of the teachers. Unfortunately, some staff also do not feel appreciated. There have been even teachers, whether it's over at Simon's, over at the middle school, and the high school, that have literally gone home in tears. I know of these teachers. And part of it is they don't feel appreciated by some of the other staff that's in their buildings, and also from further up in the chain. And just even as the paras, they cannot be treated like second-hand citizens. And I know from experience, I was even treated below the students. And that's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Satterley. I have a couple teenagers in the district, and I used to work for the district. I just wanted to make a comment. One of the book excerpts that was read tonight is from Lucky. Mr. Alter just read it. I've been reading it myself. This is it's a tricky book to read. It does have a scene like that. It's very graphic. It should be. Rape is not something to be glossed over or to be minimized, and it should be hard to read. I think every parent has the right to help their child choose whether or not they're ready to read it, but it should be available to those who do need that help. And to suggest that a man in particular, but any other person can tell somebody how they need to process something that may have happened to them like that is minimizing their experience at the very minimum, and really belittling them as a person. So I kind of wanted to make that comment. I feel like a lot of the board members are aware of that, but maybe everybody in the room isn't. So I wanted to share that. Also, Lucky is a really good book, and I highly recommend it. One other thing that I wanted to bring up, I've had a lot of emotions about the idea of banning books, and I was looking for ways to verbalize my thoughts, and I actually came across a lot of quotes by teenagers and their thoughts about banning books. And so I printed some out, and I'm just going to read one of them for you. As a teenager, I am still trying to find my way in this world. I want to know as many other viewpoints as possible so that I know my thoughts are my own and not just a product of a limited amount of information. Even if these books are not required reading, they should be allowed in libraries. Families can decide what books are allowed in their homes, but trying to force a community to get rid of a book is a way of forcing one's belief on an entire community. Removing books about issues faced by marginalized groups is a way to ignore them, a way to minimize the issues faced by those groups and allow the banners to not have their opinions challenged. This is a democracy that should be open to discussion, and if it is, then people will find others who disagree, If it is, then people will find others who agree and disagree with them. So I just thought it was important to hear what the kids are feeling and hearing and thinking when they hear about these things. So thank you.
Thank you.
Annie Cruz, congratulations to those that were elected tonight in your executive positions. I know that's a big job to continue to fill. I wanted to ask some questions about Superintendent Gearbaugh's annual evaluation that's supposed to be provided by the board per the policy in Michigan statute. I don't know if that's been scheduled yet. If it has, just wanted to, if you guys can give some clarity onto that. And then how would it be conducted? Since we've got new board members, it'd be nice to know what that process is. And also, I have some questions and concerns about conflict of interest. Not saying that there is, but I wanted to know what the process was to address conflict of interest when you're making voting, during meetings. In particular, Superintendent Gearbaugh is the FOIA coordinator, and if he's coordinating those FOIAs, how can we be? What is the checks and balances related to the transparency? So if you could address that either in your comments or in an email, or include those in the minutes of the meeting, that would be greatly appreciated. And then I guess, again, if there's any board members that have conflict of interest, what is the board policy regarding that, and the federal law regarding that? And do you have to file any disclosures related to your conflicts of interest? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others? All right, thank you for those comments this evening. I do also want to thank the crowd for their respect in listening to the comments. I appreciate it. Next on the agenda is minutes of the special meeting of December 21st, 2022. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 21, 2022.
Moved by Rosenleacher. Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the special meeting of December 2022. Those are found in the envelope for review. Is there? Oh, I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Gerber. I apologize. Yeah, this is for the special meeting. Any discussion? Ms. Heika.
Macchio?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray?
I abstain because I was not a member of the board during this meeting, and I will from the following votes as well.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next is the minutes of the, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting closed session of December 21st, 2022.
Moved by Macchio. Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the special meeting closed session of December 21st, 2022. And those are the ones that are in the envelope to be reviewed. Any questions or concerns? Ms. Heika?
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray?
Abstain?
Macchio?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
So you can hand, oh, we got to hold on.
There's another set in there.
Yep. Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 21st, 2022.
Motion by Rosenleacher. Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of December 21st, 2022. Any discussion? Ms. Heika?
Sislo?
Yes.
Heika, yes. Murray?
Abstain?
Macchio?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Next, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of December 21st, 2022. And those are also, were also found in the envelope.
Motion by Rosenleacher. Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to approve the minutes of the regular meeting closed session of December 21st, 2022. Any questions or concerns? Ms. Heika?
Heika, yes. Murray?
Abstain?
Macchio?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0.
Now we'll collect those.
There we go. All right, next I need a motion to approve the bills and reimbursements of expenses.
Moved by Murray.
Support by Heika.
So moved and supported to approve the bills and reimbursement of expenses. Any discussion? Ms. Heika?
Heika, yes. Murray?
Yes?
Macchio?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next up in our strategic plan area of finance and operations, we're going to have a first reading of the general fund budget. This was tabled at our last meeting. So Mr. Gearbaugh and Ms. Hendricks will lead us through this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Sislo. All I will do is say that you have a 2-page document in front of you. It was also included in your board pack. The first page is the general fund budget amendment. The first column is the preliminary budget as you approved prior to us having any budget guidance from the state of Michigan. The second column is the amendment budget. The third column is the difference. The second page is the description of the changes from the preliminary budget to the budget amendment, and that is what Ms. Hendricks will be talking through this evening with you. Remember that you had the ability to ask questions prior to tonight. You can ask questions this evening, or you can ask questions over the next 2 weeks leading up to the next board meeting, which is where you will actually approve. And understand your approval is only of page 1, the 1-page document. The second page is really just for your knowledge. So with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Hendricks.
Before I start, I would like to say I will not be at the next board meeting. I have a school business meeting that I will be attending overnight. So if you have any questions, if you could get them to me by January 23rd, that would give me Tuesday the 24th to get back in touch with you, and so that you would have your answers prior to the board meeting. As Mr. Gearbaugh pointed out, the second column is what we're here to discuss today. When in review of our revenues coming in, I am increasing our revenue budget by $2.1 million. This is mainly due to funding that either was not known at the time of the amendment or of the adoption in June, or we knew that it was out there, I just didn't know what it was going to be. So we knew we were receiving state aid, but we didn't know how much. We budgeted for $400 per pupil, we received $450. All of that is included in the first section. So just to give a little bit of explanation for some of the large swings, the state revenue is being increased by $794,000. Almost half of that is for UAAL, which is part of the retirement expense that the district is responsible for. But the state gives us the UAAL money up front in our state aid payment, and then 3 days later we have to turn around and give it back to them. So it's an increase in the revenue, but as you'll see on the second page, it's going to also be an increase in the expenditures. However, it's spread by a category. We also had carryover in our at-risk and our special ed grant, or adult ed grant. Those numbers are also part of that $794,000. In the federal line, the increase of $673,000 is made up in part with Section 11T monies, which we knew we were getting last June, but we didn't have our spending plan approved yet, so it was not included in our budget. There's also a piece of that that is child care stabilization money that was given to our child care program, but because the program itself falls under our budget, it's reflected in here. And the increase for the transfers coming in are our one-time payments from Washtenaw ISD as part of our Act 18 receipts. So between all of the changes that I made to the revenue budget, whether they were increases or decreases, we had an increase in revenue, or I'm anticipating an increase in revenue of $2.1 million. As far as the expenditures, I am increasing the expenditure budget by $1.2 million. That will include any of the carryover dollars that were listed in revenue up above. It includes the adjustments for insurance rates that we became aware of. It includes adjustments to our facilities expenses for items that have arisen since we first adopted our budget. I also included a 30% increase to our electricity budget based on the information provided by the consortium that we work with, MESIC. Originally, they said to anticipate a 40% increase. They followed that up about a month later with a better outlook to increase by 30%. So that is reflected in here, but I will continue to monitor those expenses to make sure that that number is appropriate. So by increasing the revenues by $2.1 million and increasing the expenditures by 1.2, the district appears to be in better shape. Our revenues are over our expenditures by $807,000, which means instead of using $2 million in fund balance, at this point, I am estimating we will be using $1.2 million. Are there any questions on that? If you look at the second page, I did probably go through more detail going over the first page than I have in the past, but there were some huge swings and I wanted to point those out. If you do look at the second page, it gives more of a description as to how the revenues were changed and why the revenues were changed and why the expenditures were changed. You will see that there are offsetting grants of $800,000. That would be an increase to our revenues and our expenditures. An increase to our revenues and expenditures for the MIPSR's UAAL piece. There was a change in our foundation allowance, as I said, from 400, which we budgeted, to the 450, which we received. And there were changes in the way the special ed program is funded through the state, and that is leading to an increase of $200,000 to our revenues. And there are minor adjustments throughout. If you look at the spreadsheet that I used to create this, there are thousands of lines that make up these numbers. So this is a condensed version. For the expenditures, we had a number of expenditures that came up for facility repairs. We had some backup lighting issues at Simon's. We had to replace or repair the HVAC system at the high school. We replaced some of the light poles throughout the district. They were having issues with being old and not necessarily being in the best condition. Our consortium tuition has gone down because our enrollment of Milan students in the consortium program has decreased, so we are recognizing a slight savings there. We do have a student who requires hearing impaired support, so we are contracting for that, so that was not known in June, so that is an increase to this budget. I have listed the elimination of one high school and one elementary teacher. Both of those eliminations were based on teachers choosing to leave the district. The elementary teacher retired. We evaluated the class counts, the class sizes, and it was not deemed necessary to fill one of those positions. So we did not lay anybody off for that position. Also at the high school level, we had somebody who chose to leave the district, and we arranged we made arrangements. We moved a teacher from one subject into that. Our FFA teacher left. We moved another teacher into FFA, and based on class sizes, we did not need to replace the teacher that moved. So none of the eliminations of positions, as I have them listed here, are due to layoffs. They're due to the fact that staff left, and we evaluated the class sizes and the student counts and determined that at this time they were not needed to be filled. So after this budget amendment, I am anticipating that our fund balance, well, as of our audit, our fund balance was $4.9 million. With the changes made in this fund balance, I'm estimating that our fund balance at the end of the school year will be $3.6 million. Are there any questions?
So just the notice, the third largest expenditure increase here is the 30% increase for electricity. And so what's that based on?
I took last year, based on the information provided through MESIC, they said it would be an increase over last year. So I looked to see what we paid for our DTE bills in total from last year and bumped that number up by 30%.
Okay.
And make sure I don't misstate anything, but I want the community to understand, when we say that we passed our budget in June without knowing how much state aid we were going to get, we are required by law to pass our budget in June, but the state legislature is not similarly required to pass their budget by the same time, thereby allowing schools to know what their budget should be. Right?
Correct.
Okay.
We were not aware of our foundation increase until the middle of July, I believe, which was well past the June 30th date where we had to have a budget approved.
Okay.
And again, this is a first reading, so we have time to ask Mr. Gearbaugh and Ms. Hendricks questions. Thank you for letting us know about the time frame in regards to that. Are there any other questions or concerns? So we'll be voting on this at the next meeting. Thank you. Next, I need a motion to approve the purchase of 2 77 passenger buses from Midwest Transit Equipment as described in attachment B.
Moved by Heike.
Support by Macchio.
It's been moved and supported to approve the purchase of 2 77 passenger buses from Midwest Transit Equipment as described in attachment B. we'll have some discussion in regards to this. Mr. Gearbaum?
Yes, as you know, we normally recommend the purchase of one school bus each year. There have been occurrences in the past where we have asked you to purchase 2 buses. Our goal is to keep the fleet safe. I have a listing, and I will share this with the board, a listing of our buses, how many miles they have on them, the model year that they are, and kind of where we are with a few of them and when we will be probably trading those buses in. The reason that we are coming to you this time to ask for 2 buses is the international bus company that makes the buses that we use, and understand it's both financially and responsibly easier to use one type of school bus. Financially, as you know, when your vehicles break down, the first thing that the mechanic does is plug your car into a computer and it does a diagnostic system. The same thing is true with our buses, but each bus has a different software and different requirements to do that. So maintaining one type of bus in the fleet allows our mechanics to only need one software package to be able to evaluate those buses. It's also easier for our mechanics to work on buses when they're similar. It's also a lot easier for us to keep parts in stock so that we can do quick repairs when we're not having to stock parts for numerous types of buses. So International came out and basically announced that in December of 2022, they are going to start retooling their entire plant to produce a next generation school bus. That means that there's a possibility of 1 to 2 years when that company will not be producing buses. If we were not able to purchase buses for 1 to 2 years, that could cause a difficulty in us being able to keep our fleet up to date and safe for our students. So with that, our dealer that we usually purchase our buses from under the state purchasing bids came to us and asked us if we were interested in purchasing buses and how many did we want. They have some in stock, so we were able to purchase those. These would be delivered in July and would be purchased out of next year's budget. My recommendation is that we do purchase 2 buses in July. One would be our normal purchase, and there are funds built into every budget for that. And the second bus would be purchased using the fund balance that we have designated for a bus purchase. The goal would be that hopefully then the next year when we don't need to purchase a bus and wouldn't be able to purchase a bus, that we would possibly be able to backfill that fund balance so that we again have a fund balance available. We also need to look at the size of the fund balance. In my time as superintendent in 15 years, buses have gone from costing about $78,000 to costing approximately $115,000. Back when we put the fund balance aside for a bus, buses were at about $90,000. That's the amount we have in the fund balance. As you can see from the bids that we got this year, buses are currently selling for about $115,000. So we would have to use a little bit of additional general fund money to purchase a second bus because the fund balance is not quite large enough. We have downsized our fleet by 1 bus. 2 years ago, we traded 2 buses in and purchased 1 bus. It is important to understand that the life expectancy of a bus is approximately 10 years, and we currently have 7 buses that are 20 years or more old. So if we don't continue to purchase at least 1 bus a year and possibly 2 a year, we will end up with a fleet that is not going to be safe for our students. Just reading off some of our older buses and the mileage that they have on them, we have buses with 201,000 miles, 190,000, 187,000, 187,000, 183,000 miles, one at 202,000 miles. So we use our buses. Our mechanics work hard to keep them safe. The bigger issue at this point, honestly, is not the engine of the bus. It's actually the undercarriage of the bus and the structure rusting. And the mechanics have brought me over and showed me some of the issues that we're having. And to a certain level, they can rebuild that and weld in additional support. But remember, we have to pass a state inspection of our buses every year, and there are only certain things that you are allowed to do, and at some point the bus is no longer legal to run. So I hope that provides some information as to why we're recommending the purchase of 2 buses and why it's critical that we continue to keep our fleet up to date.
My understanding, I remember in the past, I think we had a lull in the time that we purchased buses, such that the way that fleet lands, that it is also something that we need to consider.
That's true. Prior to me becoming superintendent, we did have a few years where we did not purchase buses. And so we've got a little bit of a gap. You know, if we always purchased one and we kind of kept that cycle rolling, we might not hit a bump in the road, but that is going to come up a little bit as we've got a chunk of years where we didn't purchase buses, and that's going to start to hit us. And that's something that we're hoping to address by purchasing the buses that we recommend to you each year.
Other questions or concerns? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve purchase of 2 77 passenger buses from Midwest Transit Equipment as described in attachment B. Ms. Heika.
Heika, yes. Murray?
Yes.
Macchio?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next up in the strategic plan area of learning and environment of culture is a potential book study. So I need a motion to approve a future book study of Why Meadow Died by Andrew Polak and Max Eden.
Moved by Heika.
Support by Rosenleacher.
It's been moved and supported to approve a future book study of Why Meadow Died by Andrew Pollock and Max Eden. Discussion. So as it was pointed out during public comment, the community did provide us with copies of Why Meadow Died in regards to some school safety issues, and that's what we're going to be considering as part of this discussion. And this would be, so we would discuss this at future board meetings if we decided to do a book study on this book. Are there?
Mr. Sislo, can you tell me, because I haven't been a part of a book study with the board, how did that operate in the past?
So, I mean, the only book study that I was aware that we've done was the last one that we did, which was Safe is Not Enough, the Better Schools for LGBTQ Students.
Mm-hmm.
It was recommended by a board member for us to do the book study on that book. And we went ahead and did that book study over the course of many months, about a year ago. Mm-hmm. And so we would read 1 to 2 chapters and discuss them at subsequent board meetings. And so that's why I think if we did that for this book, we would do the same, consider it, read 1 to 2 chapters, consider it on the agenda as we have time to consider it.
Okay.
So,
Thank
but
you.
that, as far as I'm aware, I think that's the only book study that we've ever done while I've been a board member.
We did one other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Those children, our schools, or our schools, those children.
I apologize.
Yeah, Dr. Griffith.
Griffin, yeah, Dr.
Okay.
Griffin's book.
Okay.
But it was the same process.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
So I already read the book, and I am looking forward to reading this book with my fellow board members and discussing it in the community. And I would encourage the community to read it along with us and help facilitate some discussion about what's happening here, what happened in Parkland, and see where we land.
Other comments?
I did want to share a comment that a community member spoke to me about and gave me permission to share without that person's, I just choose not to share that person's name, but one of their suggestions was, they said, has the board thought about, just so that we cover as many facets of school safety as we can, to think about kind of dividing and conquering. That person's suggestion was, could a couple people read one book and report back to the board? Could a couple other people read another book on school security? So I said that I would of course share that, which I thought was kind of a good idea too, but we just have to get valid recommendations of which books. I mean, you can go on Amazon and look up anything, but we don't know. We'd maybe have to get some recommendations from some people who do this professionally. So I just wanted to share that comment. I thought it was a good idea just to kind of, like I said, cover a lot of bases and share a lot of different perspectives, or there might be things that come up in one book that aren't even mentioned in another that we may not consider. So just putting that out there. I didn't have any specific books to share, but just wanted to put that idea.
Other comments? All right, it's been moved and supported to approve the future book study of Why Meadow Died by Andrew Pollack and Max Eden. Ms. Heika.
Murray?
Yes.
Macchio?
Yes.
Rosenleacher?
Yes.
Sislo?
Yes.
Heika, yes. Motion carries 5-0.
Next, this brings us back to public comment. Just a reminder, this meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. It's not to be considered a public meeting. There are 2 times for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. When addressing the board, you will be asked to state your name. The board determines the amount of time granted to individuals or groups to speak. Each person shall be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes, and I'll ask you to finish your thought when the timer goes off. Board members may question speakers but are not obligated to answer questions or make statements or commitments in response to issues raised by the public. In general, such items will be referred to the superintendent for advisement, investigation, study, and/or recommendation, or designated as future agenda items for board consideration. Are there any students who would like to address the board? Other public members?
Jamie McElvaney. The law 722.675 states that disseminating sexually explicit material to minors is a felony. A person is guilty of disseminating sexually explicit matter to a minor if that person does either of the following. A, knowingly disseminates to a minor sexually explicit visual or verbal material. Disseminating sexually explicit matter to a minor is a felony, punishable by imprisonment or a $10,000 fine. Sexually explicit verbal material is a book, a pamphlet, a magazine, printed matter reproduced in any manner that contains an explicit and detailed verbal description or narrative account of sexual excitement, erotic fondling, or sexual intercourse. Sexually explicit visual material is a picture, photograph, drawing that depicts nudity, sexual excitement, erotic fondling, or sexual intercourse, or a book, magazine, or pamphlet that contains such visual representation. Act 33 of 1978 states persons exempt from this are a teacher, this is the law that the schools hide behind, a teacher or administrator at a school that disseminates sexually explicit matter to a student as part of a school program permitted by law, which is sexual education classes, books that are needed to educate the children in a school program permitted by law. These books sitting on your library shelves are not part of a school program permitted by law. You are breaking the law. You are hiding behind the ACLU letter that was mentioned earlier that I've broken down. In the letter it states that they are alarmed at the efforts to ban books. No one is trying to ban books. That's a lie. Removing books from a school is not banning books. They can go to Amazon and buy them all day long. They're claiming these books are highly acclaimed. Highly acclaimed by who? The authors, their fellow authors, librarians, and the ALA, and other liberal groups. And acclaimed does not mean age appropriate. They also say, we urge you to affirm your commitment to public education and the First Amendment and the welfare of all students. Public education doesn't need sexually explicit books. The First Amendment doesn't give adults the right to disseminate, display, or exhibit sexually explicit material to minors. The First Amendment doesn't give minors the freedom to view sexually explicit material. And the welfare of students would be protecting them from sexually explicit material, not giving it to them. The letter also states that to deny students access to important info about LGBTQ people, human sexuality, racism, and other topics students have a right to learn about in an educational setting. No one is wanting to remove books about LGBTQ people or people from different races. They want to remove sexually inappropriate books. Kids do not have a right to learn about human sexuality through sexually explicit library books. Human sexuality is taught in a highly regulated class approved by the state with an option for parents to opt out. It then says, this restricts opportunities to be introduced to new ideas and information. Okay, I had more, but I'm just going to say that you said that because of this ACLU letter, you're protecting your school by not removing these books. I have the Thomas More Society writing a rebuttal letter to this ALCU fear campaign. It will be ready by tomorrow. I'll make sure you get a copy of it so you can stop hiding behind the statement that you're protecting the school from lawsuits. I promise
Thank
you
you
the
for your
lawsuits
comment.
you should be protecting your school from are not from the ACLU, but from us.
Thank you for agreeing to do the book study. There are a lot of people that are really grateful for that, so I do appreciate it. And also wanted to clarify that for the people that were talking about the teachers, when we come up here and talk about these books, this is not about teachers. A majority of these, actually we get a lot of teachers who've told us that they also agree with us and they're not comfortable with these books being around because they also have to be around and listen to the students talking about it, which is really awkward as well. So, Aristotle and Dante discover the secrets of the universe. There's 3 copies of this in the high school, but that's not really what's concerning. What's really concerning is that there is a copy in Paddock, which is kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. Dante, who loved kissing dogs, who loved kissing his parents, who loved kissing boys, who even loved kissing girls, and I suspected he liked masturbating too. I thought masturbating was embarrassing. Having sex with yourself is really weird, autoeroticism. He said, "You're gay, Vato, you know that. What the hell was this guy talking about? I was gay because I didn't want to shoot up heroin?" And then I said, "Yeah, I'm gay and I want to kiss you." And then he got a really disgusting look on his face and said, "I ought to kick your ass." I wondered what it would be like to be drunk. I mean, really drunk. "When I get back this summer, I'm going to take you swimming and drown you. Almost drown you. Then I'll give you mouth to mouth and revive you." And then he got mad and called me all sorts of other names, and he said he was going to kick my ass all the way to the border. And who the F did I think I was, thinking that I was too good to shoot up or even smoke cigarettes, and didn't I know that nobody liked me? I wasn't exactly afraid of the little son of a bitch, and I said, "Why don't you get someone else to do drugs with you?" I figured the guy was lonely, but he didn't have to be an asshole about it. Kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. This book, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, is in the middle school. So speaking of people that claim to be normalizing pedophilia, this book is about a pedophile. The confused mixture of his memories of Pauline and the doing of a wild and forbidden thing excited him, and a bolt of desire ran down his genitals, giving it length and softening the lips of his anus. Surrounding all of this lust was a border of politeness. He wanted to fuck her tenderly, but the tenderness would not hold. The tightness of her vagina was more than he could bear. His soul seemed to slip down to his guts and fly out into her, and the gigantic thrust he made into her then provoked the only sound she made, a hollow suck of air in the back of her throat. Removing himself from her was so painful to him, he cut it short and snatched his genitals out of the dry harbor of her vagina. So when the child regained consciousness, she was lying on the kitchen floor under a heavy quilt, trying to connect the pain between her legs with the face of her mother looming over her. Why do I have to die? The little girls are the only things I'll miss. Do you know that when I touched their sturdy little tits and bit them just a little, I felt I was being friendly? I didn't want to kiss their mouths or sleep in the bed with them or take a child bride for my own. Playful, I felt, and friendly, not like the newspapers said, not like all the people whispered, and they didn't mind at all. And they'd eat ice cream with their legs wide open while I played with them. It was like a party, and there wasn't nastiness, and there wasn't any filth, and there wasn't any
Thank you for your comment.
There wasn't any groaning, just the light white laughter of
Thank
little
you for your
girls
comment.
and me in your middle school. This has nothing to do with banning books.
Annie Cruz, just really quickly, there's word from those that are watching online that audio is being cut in and out, and the volume is being turned down, and also internet is
The internet is buffering really bad. I've been in communication with the IT person, and we are recording and we'll upload a complete one as soon as it concludes.
Thank you so much for addressing that. I really appreciate it. Just making sure you guys were aware. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, regardless of the internet, the technology department always makes a copy that when it's uploaded, it'll be the entire copy is how, yeah. I apologize for what's happening now, but when the video is posted, it'll be the entire video. Yep. Yep.
Hi, Doug Charles. It's a lot of quoting passages here. So let's get our dad to drink wine and then sleep with him and preserve our family through our father. That night they got their father to drink wine and the older daughter went in and slept with him. He wasn't aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. The next day the older daughter said to the younger, "Last night I slept with my father. Let's get him to drink wine again tonight and you go in and sleep with him so we can preserve our family through our father." So they got their father to drink wine that night also, and the younger daughter went in and slept with him. Again, he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she got up. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. It's so easy to take things out of context, and we can keep doing that all day.
Yeah, you're right. We could. But that was totally ridiculous.
Can I have your name, sir?
My name is George Wilkins. And for any one of you to sit up here and talk about how that is okay to have that kind of book in your school for kindergarten and first and second and fifth graders, and somebody come up here and start reading the Bible and say that that's all right. No, it's not the same thing. You know it, I know it. You are to protect those kids. You're to protect their minds, help them grow. How dare any one of you say that any of that's okay? If you can stand up and tell your kids that, then you should be ashamed of yourself. And somebody here in this district should be calling the police tomorrow and having you arrested for criminal charges, for child abuse, and you know it.
My name is Stacy Tarassi. This book is currently in Milan schools. It's called Push. I've been knowing that if a man puts his dick in you, gushes his white stuff in your booty, you could get pregnant. I'm 12 now, but I've been knowing about that since I was 5 or 6. Maybe I always known about pussy and dick. Daddy put his pee-pee smelly thing in my mouth. My pussy, if it never holds me, I see me, first grade, pink dress, with dirty sperm stuff on it. I feel Mama's hand between my legs, moving up my thigh. I can tell Mama is in the room now because of the smell. Mama's hand goes creepy spider up my legs into my pussy. Daddy slaps my ass. You're as white as the Mississippi, he tells me. He fucks me. He fucks me and has a child with me. My pee-pee is open and hot and stinky down my thighs. I'm 7. And he is on me almost every night. First in my mouth, then he intercourses me. I think my daddy stinks. The white shit drips off his dick. Lick it, lick it. I hate that. But then I feel the hot cha-cha feeling when he's fucking me. My clit swells up when I think of Daddy. He pumps my pussy in and out and I come. I go to this bathroom and I smear shit on my face. A girl who's had her father's dick in her mouth knows things that other girls don't know. My hand is going up through the smell of Mama, and my hand is pushing Daddy's dick out of my face. Mama pushes my head down on her. I can't talk no more. I still got milk in my breast, but not for the baby, because Carl be sucking on it. I give him titty. I never get dried up because Carl always sucking on me. Before all of that, I slid my fingers of the sweet stink of another child and knelt down to lick her thighs. He was on me, but then he reached out to Precious. Starts with his finger between her legs. This is good for her, he says. He takes off her Pampers and tried to stick his thing in her. What tripped me out is he could almost get into Precious. She must be some kind of freak baby. This is in your school. You think this is appropriate?
Hello, Rachel Hobbs again. I'm just going to wrap up what the other half of my first public comment. It is clear that there are Supreme Court cases that specifically provide that certain speech is not protected by the First Amendment, which include obscenity and child pornography. It can certainly be argued that the material of these books.
So that's another. Keep going. I'll stop the timer.
The subject to these book challenges does fall within these two categories. In summary, when it comes to content that is obscene to minors and or harmful as to minors, such material contained in the challenge books, including pornography, kids do not have the same First Amendment rights as adults. The Ginsburg Court also relied on not only on the state's independent interest as the well-being of its youth, but it was also consistent with the recognition of the principle that the parents claim to have the authority of their own household and direct the rearing of their children in the basic structure of our society. And that can be found at Ginsburg at 693. I have a few other things. I do appreciate you guys agreeing to do the book study. That is maybe finding some middle ground. We've been requesting that you guys do something for a long time, so thank you. I do also want to point out that at one of the board meetings, it was mentioned or it was stated that Fun Home, which is a graphic novel with obscene pictures, was originally donated from a third party to the GSA Club. At that point, the book was not a library book, and this action, per state statute, is clearly unlawful, and this should be investigated. I also want to know, and you can provide this in writing, is if the district uses the database EBSCO. Welcome, Betty, and welcome, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trish Parker again. So I was also informed that one of the teachers for the high school had one of the assignments for the senior class. And it was just to observe either a city council meeting or a school board meeting. But they're getting more than just a government lesson. They're also getting another lesson on top of that of, let's say, sexual education. Maybe that should have came with a warning level next time. Thank you.
Sydney Smith. I'm glad you guys are doing the book study. I will just note that hopefully after that, maybe the book will let you know that Paris still don't have keys that they were promised to have before school started. It is now January, and they still don't have keys. Not that that's a school board issue. That might be more of something Mr. Gearbaugh can address in his superintendent comments. I would also like to address some things that are not quite accurate about what we're told to you. If they can access these materials elsewhere, why are you providing it? That's not education. They can also find pot elsewhere. Are you handing it out? They can also have sex elsewhere. That doesn't change the law. That's still statutory rape. And then finally, there are middle-aged women here saying that these books are just so good, just so complex, just difficult though, haunting, and then saying, give it to immature teenagers to read because it's good for them. Does that sound like education? That sounds dangerous, to be handing out materials that are difficult for them to read to immature teenagers. Yikes. It's such heavy content. There are several sexual verses in the Bible. These are not as explicit as these books. And we also saw how using the Bible to fight this ended last meeting, so maybe we shouldn't use that. And finally, some of you have a clear stance on this issue. We are well aware of that. Those of you who don't, grow up, take a stance, be courageous, because you know that this is wrong. And don't force these children to grow up because you refuse to.
Good evening. I'm Darrell Ansel. I'm bringing 42 years of police service to Monroe County. This is disgusting. This is sick. If a citizen brought me this and told me that the neighbor handed this to their daughter or son, I would prosecute them to the max. This can all be alleviated by you people, each one of you. I'm talking one person. We're talking 10. People are held accountable for this. And it's each one of you that are being held accountable. All I'm asking for is to you make the right decision, alleviate these books from your shelves, and it's all going to go away. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Charter, and I'd like to say I know we live in a republic or democracy, however you would like to use the words. And I think today maybe you've seen...
Hold on. I'm going to pause here. Can you just bring the mic up a little bit?
Does that work for you?
They can't hear you.
It's a simple point.
Just step a little closer. Now,
And this?
Yep.
Is this a sweet spot here?
Thank you.
Am I all right here?
That's perfect.
Okay. If this is a republic or a democracy, whatever term you'd like to use, what have you seen tonight? Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley St Clair. I'm going to quote the superintendent from the Dundee School Board on Tuesday, and I'm going to argue with facts. And I'm going to talk about who's really pushing these books on kids. Is it the district that has taken the time to set up a system that parents can sign up for to be alerted for when and what books their children check out? Because it seems to me that the district's just trying to help make sure that the parents are staying informed as to their children's choices. Is it the school board that took a book from the general circulation that now needs parental consent to even look at, let alone check out of the library? Because it seems like you guys are actually trying to make it harder for kids to get their hands on those books. Could it be the teachers that don't have any of these books as required reading? I think the teachers are just trying to get the kids to actually do their homework and participate in class. Or is it just the librarian who keeps a book on a shelf? I emailed the district to see how many times these books have been checked out, because surely if they are being pushed onto our kids, they must be flying off of the shelves. And it turns out your kids are not reading these books. Let's start with the book that the board just pulled from the shelves, Fun Home. It was checked out one time in 2022 and one time in 2021. Identical has not been checked out of the library since 2019. And because so many people got bees in their bonnets over Miss Kiger bringing up the Bible has only been checked out of the school twice since 2016. Now, it does get interesting, though, when you get to the book Push. Between 2010 and 2020, that book was only checked out 12 times in 10 years. One time in 2021, and 7 times in 2022. So it kind of is showing that the parents who keep coming to these meetings are piquing the interest of the student body. It seems like the people pushing these books on kids are the very adults yelling at school board meetings about them, compiling them into easily accessible public lists, and reading them aloud on their public Facebook pages for everyone to hear and enjoy. It's almost like if you tell kids not to read something, they will.
Go ahead.
Eric Rice. Going on what she had to say. These books are only being checked out because of the parents that are talking about them here. I did not know that any of these books were here until I had to come to watch these government meetings. Why are they pushing it here when if they don't talk about them, they wouldn't be read? There are multiple times that these books have only been checked out by one person a year. And if the parents really didn't want their kids reading these books, then all the parents have to do is tell the kids that they shouldn't have this type of book in their house, reading it all. And if the kids actually listened to the parents, they wouldn't worry about it. They wouldn't check them out. Thank you.
My name is Michael Orr. The Lovely Boys by Alice Sebold is in the middle school and the high school. Here's some verses from that book. Take your clothes off, Mr. Harvey said. I want to check that you're still a virgin. I fought hard. I fought as hard as I could not to let Mr. Harvey hurt me. But my hard as I could was not hard enough, not even close. And I was soon lying down on the ground, in the ground, with him on top of me, panting and sweating, having lost his glasses in the struggle. I thought it was the worst thing in the world to be lying flat on my back with a sweating man on top of me, to be trapped inside the earth and have no one to know where I was. Mr. Harvey started to press his lips against mine. They were blueberry and wet, and I wanted to scream, but I was too afraid and too exhausted from the fight. Please don't. But he grew tired of hearing me plead. He reached into the pocket of my parka and balled up the hat my mother had made me, smashing it into my mouth. The only sound I made after that was the weak tinkling of bells. He kissed his wet lips down my face and neck and then began to shove his hands up under my skirt. I wept. I began to leave my body. I began to inhale air and silence. I wept and struggled so I would not feel. He ripped open my pants. Not having found the invisible zipper my mother had artificially sewn into their side. Big white panties, he said. I felt huge and bloated. I felt like a sea in which he stood and pissed and shit. I felt the corners of my body were turning in on themselves and out, like a cat's cradle, which I played with Lindsay just to make her happy. He started working himself over me. He was inside me. He was grunting. I was the mortar. He was the pestle. A young girl being led through the streets. She was taken to a prior where she was wound in a sheet and placed up on a platform built from sticks. The bright fire that consumed her brought my mother into that deep, light, dreamlike bliss. The girl was being burned alive, but first, there had been her body clean and whole. He raped her in the bushes and then strangled her. That time, as he grew conscious, coming up out of the stupor that he often clung to, he heard noises. He turned the deep He turned the dead girl's face towards his, and as the voices grew closer, he bit down on her ear. I felt a marvelous draft on the inside of my thighs. He brushed my nipple with his thumb, and I pulled his head toward me. We kissed. The water came down between our bodies and wet the sparse hair along his chest and stomach. I kissed him because I wanted to see Ruth, and I wanted to see Holly, and I wanted to know if they could see me.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Good evening, Kirk DeMars. I wanted to come to defense of some books tonight as well. I think there's a group of 66 books that I do believe are being disparaged and taken out of context. And I originally didn't plan to address it because I wanted Jan Kiger to ride off in the sunset and enjoy her time, but her taking scripture out of context. But since it was brought up tonight, I think it's appropriate that we address the book or group of books, the Bible. So I wanted to share some other scripture that I think is a little bit better to hear on your ears, that I think is really more what the context of the overall Bible is really about. So we're in Romans chapter 10, if you want to pull up your Bible app. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Verse 10, for it is by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it is by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. Okay. This seems like a pretty easy fix to me from what I'm hearing tonight if we boil it down to a couple sentences. We have one side that believes we have some obscene material that's not appropriate for minors to view. And we have one side that clearly believes no one's checking these books out anyway. So, pretty simple conclusion, right? Let's just remove the books. Nobody's checking them out anyway, right?
Are there others? All right, next up is student board member representative comments. Ms. Powell, Ms. Farrell? Ms. Farrell?
Oh, okay.
Ms. Powell?
Sorry, my computer died. I have to use my phone. Is it
I think it's on.
Okay. I would just like to point out that you guys should save the dates for the Mamma Mia production that is March 10th, 11th, 17th, 18th at 7 p.m. and March 12th at 2 p.m. The auditions were held yesterday. I saw some of the kids lined up and they looked very happy, and it looks like a very good group of cast members, as well as the high school's winter dance on February 11th. Paddock, Simons, and the middle school, I did not find any events that were posted on their website. However, on the 12th, the girls varsity and JV basketball will be playing against SMCC, JV at 5:30, varsity at 7 at the high school. The 14th, there is a wrestling tournament at 9 a.m. at Bronson High School. Boys swim goes against Holland Christian at Holland Christian High School at 12:30 p.m. on the 14th as well. And on the 16th, boys and girls bowling will be playing against Airport High School at Flat Rock Lanes at 3:30 p.m.
And then tomorrow there is a JV and varsity boys basketball game versus SMCC at home at 5:30 and 7 p.m. There is a hockey game versus Chelsea at the Arctic Coliseum at 7:30 p.m. Congratulations to the girls basketball team for their success this past week, and a congratulations to the Milan DECA Club for their success at the DECA district competition today.
Thank you, ladies. Anything else? Great, thank you. Superintendent comments, Mr. Gearbaugh.
Thank you. I do have a few things to share this evening.
First, I would like to share, and I appreciate the board approving the purchase of buses. Because of the fact that we keep our fleet up, I am holding a certificate from the state of Michigan for a 100% pass rate on our school bus inspections with the Michigan State Police. And I would like to note that this is, and we only have certificates back so far, but we have over 20 years of 100% pass rate for our buses. And that's because we continue to purchase buses and provide our mechanics with the supplies and materials and parts that they need. And our mechanics also do a tremendous job of taking care of the fleet, as do our drivers and everybody else that works with those vehicles. And I just want to thank them all. It's a pretty heavy lift to have over 20 years never receiving a yellow or a red tag on a bus, receiving 100% green tags. So congratulations to our transportation department. I hope that everyone had a relaxing and safe holiday break and New Year. I will say that it's exciting to be back in school in 2023. And believe it or not, we are almost to the midpoint of this school year. A reminder that we do not have school this coming Monday, January 16th, in recognition of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I wanted to let everyone know that Lisa Mellinger, the director of our early childhood programs, resigned in late December. Lisa made the decision to move to the west side of the state and return back to her hometown. The interview process for a new director of early childhood programs is well underway, and we hope to recommend a hire to the Board of Education at either the second January meeting or the first February meeting. The staff that worked with Lisa in the office have done a tremendous job for the last couple of weeks, keeping that program running. I want to thank Mr. McMahon and Mr. DeSarbo for also providing some supports when those folks had some questions. Just truly a team effort to step in and help keep that program moving. And truly to all of the staff in the PECC, all of the teachers and support staff that work in that program that have kept it going and are looking forward to having a new director in the next couple of weeks. I want to personally thank Sarah Murray and welcome her to the board. And I also want to welcome and thank Betty Rosenleecher. I know she's been on the board for a little while, but now she's here in an elected seat. And I welcome both of them and look forward to working with them over the next years. The next Big Red Chat with the Board of Education is scheduled for Tuesday, January 17th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. in the middle school librarium. To comply with the Open Meetings Act, the Big Red Chat will be hosted by 3 members of the Milan Area Schools Board of Education. The main topic for this Big Red Chat is school safety. While each Big Red Chat has a main topic, it is important to remember that comments and questions on any school-related topic will be accepted. The last item that I have, and this will go out in a message to the community and will be on the website tomorrow, the Milan Area Schools Sexual Education Advisory Board, or SEAB, meets regularly throughout the year. At their recent meetings, the group reviewed and received new materials for teaching Paddock Elementary students about body safety. The new curriculum was developed by and would be presented by the Washtenaw Area Council for Children. The materials include 8 20-minute lessons. They are all along the lines of I am the boss of my body. And in the first week, they do poison, fire, and gun safety, home alone and getting lost, car and street safety, and stranger safety. During the second week, they talk about private body parts, the body safety rule, what to do if someone breaks the body safety rule, and the no, go, tell process. These materials were presented to the SEAB board, which has a very diverse makeup, and there was a unanimous decision to move forward with asking the board to approve those materials. It's important for everyone to understand that those materials cannot go to the board until there have been 2 public hearings. The first open hearing on these materials will be at 6 p.m. on January 23rd in the Paddock cafeteria. If you're interested in attending, please do so. The Washtenaw Council will actually be there and will be going through the exact material that will be used in the classroom, so you'll be able to see all of the materials in their entirety. We will then have a second open meeting on those on February 8th in conjunction with the school board meeting, and the goal is to have the board approve those if they see fit at their school board meeting in February. Again, this came as a unanimous recommendation from the SEEB board. We appreciate all of their work in reviewing it. It's also important to understand that if these materials are approved, each year there would be an evening presentation to parents about the materials. There are also very well-written letters from the organization to send out to families so that they understand, and as always, families would be able to opt out of those programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gearbaugh. Assistant Superintendent comments, Mr. McMahon?
Yeah, I have 2 comments tonight. I just want to share with the board that I have submitted and I received 9 reimbursement requests for the training courses that you attend. They are reimbursable when you complete a course. The district's notified and I get to submit a reimbursement request. So they're covered. So I appreciate you guys attending the trainings and getting the paperwork submitted through the system to me, and they've been reimbursed. So 9 of those last semester. And also want to share with you that our Title III application has been amended and submitted. It was amended because we got carryover funds. So you submit your initial application, then they recalculate some funds, give you hopefully more money, which in this case they did. And the total amount of the amended application is just over $7,500. So that's submitted now, we'll wait for approval.
Thank you. Next up is board member comments. I have a few things. First up is board committee assignments. So I've asked board members to submit their ranked choice of the 5 committees that we have of what they'd like to serve. I'll take those results next week and then make assignments, inform them of the assignments and the chairs. So please, board members, let me know if you have not already your ranked choices for board committee assignments. Also, the other thing is we will continue to have the sponsor of board members of schools. So if there's a certain school that you want to sponsor to help out, be the board member rep for that school, let me know and we will make those assignments as well. In regards to a few of the public comments in regards to Mr. Gearbaugh's evaluation, it has been postponed because of the student disciplinary hearings that we had in December. We do have it currently tentatively scheduled for February. It will follow the same format that we had before, where we'll have Scott Morrell from Michigan Area School Board Association facilitate that evaluation. Mr. Gearbaugh will let us know if he wants to have that evaluation take place in closed session as this is right. We will be taking the feedback that was received in the survey that was sent out at the end of the school year last year. In regards to that, the requirement is that his evaluation be submitted annually to the state of Michigan by June. So that is, we will make sure that that evaluation is taken care of and submitted to the state of Michigan by June. I do again want to reiterate what Mr. Gearbaugh said about the Big Red Chat. Please come out in regards to that. If you have to listen to some things regarding school safety and if you have other questions or concerns, it is a great way to have two-way communication with the board. In regards to the conflict of interest policy, I would refer you to the district website, the policies. There is a conflict of interest policy 0144.3 for board members, where you can read that in regards to the policy for conflict of interest. Also, there's policy PO 9130 in regards to challenge materials. So if that's always anybody's, if you do have a challenge in regards to these books, you can submit a challenge through that policy in order to have that go through that process. So I just want to remind people of that. Those are my comments for now. Others?
Mr. Sissa?
Yeah, Ms. Murray.
I just wanted to briefly thank the community for this opportunity to serve the district and the students and the staff that I care about so much, and in this new capacity, and that I'm honored and look forward to working together. And I wanted to also thank the board and Mr. Gearbaugh for your warm welcome. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Others?
Mr. Sislo?
Yes, Ms.
I'd also
Rosenberg.
like to thank the community for putting their faith in me to sit on this board. As a lifelong educator, it's an honor to be able to sit on this side of the table and support students. In addition, I just want to mention for the community that in regards to new board members and superintendent evaluation, we are required by law to attend a class through MASB regarding the superintendent evaluation. I was able to take that earlier in my time on the board, but I'm certain that Ms. Murray will be doing that as well.
Yeah, just in regards to that. So there are classes that are held by MASB. If there is one, obviously Ms. Murray will attend that as soon as possible. But just in regards to the evaluation, she'll be participating as an observer as part of that process anyways as we go forward. So, but if she is not trained, she's not going to participate anyways. She's going to participate as an observer.
First, I want to welcome Ms. Murray to the board, and I look forward to working with you. I also want to thank everyone that attended tonight and spoke up. I especially want to thank the students that spoke up tonight. I know it's not easy, but I think that your viewpoints are very important in this entire discussion. I also want to clarify something very quickly. I did at a previous board meeting say that All Boys Aren't Blue was a beautiful book. I also did say that my high schooler could read that book. She's not 13. In fact, she'll be 15 next week. I also was very clear from this board meeting that I would not allow her to read the book Push because I didn't think she was mature enough to read it, and that I as a parent would exercise my parental consent and tell her not to read the book. I agree with Ms. Bennick. There is a compromise here that we can work towards so that we can address the concerns of those who don't think that children should be able to read these books and those who believe that these books provide important windows and representation for some of our children. That's exactly why I proposed early on our new policy here at the schools, where as parents you can sign up and so that you will get a notification from the school every time your child checks out a book. And then you can exercise your parental choice and decide whether or not your child can read that book. It's also exactly why at the last board meeting that I made the motion that the book Fun Home would be removed from the shelf and would be segregated and required parental consent before that book can be viewed or checked out by anyone in the district. It becomes very difficult, though, to continue to compromise and have honest discussions about these books when the following language is routinely thrown at you: disgusting, shameful, pervert, groomer, and they're all agreeing with it, and various other names. The playbook seems to be that if I can't convince you of my point of view, I'll resort to name calling and try and get you there. And once you reduce someone to something as horrific as a pervert or a groomer, the next step becomes very easy, and it incites some to actually resort to physical threats. So here it comes. Here are some of the threats that the members of this board received after our last meeting. And I'll give everyone a heads up that this language is harsh, and it very well may be triggering for some because it does involve physical violence and rape. This is one I received on December 23rd. The subject is porn. You stupid cunt. You best remove those books from the library like ASAP. Dumb fucks you are. All of you are brainwashed, perhaps too many vaccines. This is an email that a fellow board member received on December 23rd. The subject is Satan. You are a piece of shit, and you know that. You sold your soul to Satan. I hope one of those parents kicks the shit out of you. I bet your liberal dumb asses stay away from vaccines. It's quite obvious it has warped your brains. Burn in hell. This is an email that a fellow board member received on from December 26th. The subject is you and a homophobic slur that begins with the letter F that I don't use. And cunts are trash. I pray your families are raped and murdered by the trash crossing the border and you find them in the act. Then they do the same to you after making you watch them finish with the others. You are fucking scum. Comments on Facebook suggest we are going to hell, that tarring and feathering us may be an option, that should we be sued, and you heard tonight criminally charged, or smitten by God himself. Then after all of those emails, we are mocked on Facebook because we are concerned for our safety, not only tonight, but other nights as well. None of this solves the real issues that our schools are facing. Us board members are dealing with death and rape threats instead of curriculum, safety, our students' mental health, their preparedness to enter the world when they graduate, and how to recruit and retain quality teachers. I encourage everyone to stop with the hyperbole and the name calling, and quite frankly, the incitement of violence. And let's focus on the students, their needs, and how we can come together to solve these issues our schools and community are facing. Thank you to everyone, and I think those laughs from the audience say a lot more about those individuals than it does me. Thank you.
Any other board comments?
I have something I'd like to say. As an elementary school teacher for 30 years now, I had to have a difficult conversation with my principal this week to let her know that I was being threatened to be raped and murdered, and that since I work in her school,